Translation: Aja, Brahmā, and others arrived on the spot to see the fearfully tusked demon lying on the ground, biting his lip. The glow of his face was yet unfaded, and Brahmā admiringly said, "Oh, who could meet such a blessed death?" So, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Although the demon was dead, his bodily luster was unfaded. This is very peculiar because when a man or animal is dead, the body immediately becomes pale, the luster gradually fades, and decomposition takes place. But here, although Hiranyaksha lay dead, his bodily luster was unfaded because the Lord, the Supreme Spirit, was touching his body. One's bodily luster remains fresh only as long as the spirit soul is present. Although the demon's soul had departed his body, the Supreme Spirit touched the body, and therefore his bodily luster did not fade. The individual soul is different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead when he quits his body is certainly very fortunate, and therefore personalities like Brahmā and the other demigods utilized the death of the demon. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So some of you are calling in. You can't see this, but what I have is a PowerPoint presentation, so maybe I'll try and describe the slides that I'm showing. So again, the verse is Shitau Shayanam Tam Akunta Varchasam. So we recognize the word kunta, just like Vaikuntha, means freedom from all anxieties. So in this sense, it would always also mean something that's not faded, going down, deteriorating. Akunta Varchasam, like glowing. So even though the demon was lying on the ground, still his face appeared to be like glowing with luster. And then the description here is really something. Karala Dangsha means he had these fearful teeth. Paridasta Dachadam is he's biting his lip. And then when Brahmā Adadayo Viksha Shashuns Agata, when Brahmā and the other demigods, when they arrived and they saw this, they exclaimed, "Aho, aho imang konu labeta sangstitim." So sangstitim means to die, caught in the cycle of birth and death. So the Brahmā says, who could possibly meet such a wonderful death? So we know that the Lord, when he's present, just like in the battle of Kurukshetra, both sides attained liberation just by being in the presence of the Lord, by seeing him. Or just like Shishupal and Dantavakra, who of course are also Jai and Vijay, they attained liberation. And then perhaps the most famous example is that of Putana, who was such a demon that she came disguised and presented herself as a mother of the Lord and offered her breast milk, which was smeared with a deadly poison. But Krishna took the bright side, that she's offering her mother's milk. Can you imagine? Such a demon wanted nothing else but to kill the Lord, but still Krishna took the little sentiment she may had to fake. He took that and gave her liberation. So this is so astonishing that Uddhava said to Vidura that I consider the demons to be greater than the devotees of the Lord, because while they're fighting with the Lord, they're completely absorbed in thoughts of the Lord. So the same thing is said here. Aho imang konu lobeta sangstitim, that who could have a more glorious death than this demon? Because Karala Dangstra, his fearful teeth are paridashta chadam, they're biting his lip. It's like these descriptions about how there's battles and people's arms will be cut off and the weapons are still being clutched in their hands. It's like frozen in time. So similarly, this demon, he's biting his lips in anger and pain. So you can tell how absorbed he is in the thought of the Lord. So the demigods, headed by Lord Brahmā, are exclaiming, what a glorious death this is, to be absorbed so intensely on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what I would like to do is to try to show the great difference between a devotee's meeting of death and that of the non-devotees. Because the devotees are absorbed in thoughts of the Lord throughout their lives, how different that is than the non-devotees, who throughout their lives are absorbed in forgetting about the Lord. So here's a few slides I thought that might be helpful. So here you see, this is the paragon of masculinity. This is Arnold Schwarzenegger, I guess in his 20s, and he's just the emblem of a bodybuilder. If you're not looking at this, he's on the beach and there's a blonde woman in a bikini look adoringly at Arnold's beautiful body. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but way down at the left bottom corner, there's a little Playboy icon. So who knows, maybe this is a Playboy magazine or something. But anyway, he is the epitome of masculinity. Now, I'm going to go to the next picture and just look at how time takes its toll. I'm going to show a series of actually 8 different photographs of when, especially actors, movie stars, because they have fame and they really look good, to see how dramatic the force of time is. So here's that same Arnold Schwarzenegger as in the Terminator movie, and then right next to him, he's at the age of 64, and it's absolutely dramatic. What happened to his beautiful body? It's just racked by time. Here's another one. This is Sean Connery, another famous actor, playing James Bond. Here he is at 81, just embarrassing. Can you imagine the same person? Here's Robert De Niro, who's a tough guy in a lot of different movies. Here he is, next to him, a picture of him at 68 years old, just defeated, body falling apart. Again, embarrassing. Here's another famous actor, Al Capiccio. I think this was a movie about gangsters called Scarface, about criminals. So he always played tough guys in the movies. Nice looking guy, right? Strong, masculine. Now look at him at 72, made humble by the force of time. Here's another one. This is Roger Moore, who also played James Bond many times. And look at him at 84, how spent he is. I think I have 2 more examples here. Here's Val Kilmer. Nice looking guy, very strong. And now look at him at 52, all puffed up, probably because of drinking and a licentious lifestyle, just destroyed. Here's Mel Gibson at 56, coming to the end of his life, just a drunk. And last one, This is John Travolta at 58. What a difference time makes. Now, pay attention very carefully to the next slide. This is the same group, or the same age, 60s, 70s. Look how young these devotees look. For anybody that's not looking at this, it's got a picture of Srila Prabhupada, a photograph of Srila Prabhupada in the middle, and then around him, almost a dozen different, mostly sannyasis. And you can just see how vibrant, how young they look. Their bodies are old, their faces are old, but they look full of life and vigor. The reason I showed all those movie stars is because these guys are the icons. Compared to devotees of the same age, I mean, these are recent pictures within the last year or two of these devotees, and what a striking difference it makes. So this reminds us of this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Ayur Harati Vaipungsa Udyan Astau Chayanasau, that the sun, as it rises and it sets every day, it's stealing away the life of the living entities. That's what it means. Ayur Harati, it steals their youth. But tasyarte yakshinonita, that means except for one who utilizes every moment. Shino is just a moment, like a fraction of a second. They use every moment for uttama sloka vartaya, for singing, for praising the glories of the Lord. And I thought this was dramatic. So if you saw that, I think anybody objectively can see what the difference is between a devotee of the Lord and that of a non-devotee. Youth, vibrancy, because of their contact with the Lord. So the reason is because whether a devotee lives or dies, it doesn't matter. He is absorbed in the thought of the Lord. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, that a devotee, sadhu, he dies to live. The sun takes away the life of every living entity, but for the devotees, they're free of that because they utilize their time in glorifying the Lord, so therefore they can conquer death. In a previous verse, it said that with this fight between Hiranyaksha and the Lord, Hiranyaksha pointed his mace at the Lord's chest with all of his might, but the Lord just slightly moved to the side and dodged the violent blow of the demon's mace, just as a yogi who's accomplished eludes death. That's how it's described. So I saw, when I was in my younger years, I used to take the martial arts, and it's amazing how somebody's accomplished in the martial arts, just a little tilt of the body, and they'll deflect a blow, they'll parry a blow. You can hardly even see them move. Like our instructor, he was amazing how good he was. It's the same with a yogi. It appears the same. They also appear to die, but there's a slight difference. The difference is they parry death, they deflect death, because a yogi lives forever. Now, how can you say that? Yogis die like everybody else died, but it's not like that, because their superficial death, a devotee's superficial death, is not death at all. Why? Because they've woken up from the dream. Anybody who's in a dream, they may be having a nightmare. They don't know that they're in a dream. But somebody who wakes up, they're completely divorced from it. Similarly, this life is nothing but an illusion we're absorbed in. If we wake up out of the nightmare, then we're free. So even though those that are stuck in the dream, they may see that the body dies, but actually we're waking up from the dream. So, oops, I went too far. I got to go back to the previous slide. Come on. Sorry. There you go. I hit the wrong button. Sorry. Okay, so a yogi or a devotee, he's free from death because he wakes up out of the dream of illusion. But how come, then, for neophyte devotees like ourselves, that even though we know that we can be free of death, and the way you become free of death is by becoming absorbed in thoughts of the Lord, then the question is how to remain always absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Durdaivam idrishamiha nanuraga. Ihajini nanuraga. Ihajini nanuraga means that attachment for the taste of chanting the holy name never arises because of great misfortune. So why is that? That we can't become fully absorbed and take advantage of what we know is the cure of death. The example is given. It's just like if you were in a deep, dark well, you fell in. You have absolutely no hope of being saved. However, if somebody outside of the well throws you a rope, then you can be saved. So the spiritual master, he drops the rope to get us out of this material world. Without his mercy as a representative of the Lord, there is no way that we can pull ourselves out of this dark well of material existence. The spiritual master pulls us out. So it's the mercy of the spiritual master, the representative of the Lord, that he's able to pull us out of the mire of material existence. However, from our side, we still have to work. Even though it's complete mercy, we have to try enough that we're going to hold on to the rope tightly and use our feet or our legs somehow or other, to extricate ourselves. We've got to do a little bit of work. We've got to hold on tight to take advantage of the mercy of the pure devotee of the Lord pulling us out of this material world. So what we find is that Durdayavam Idrisham Iha Nanuraga, we don't have attachment. Why are we not taking advantage of this mercy to have ourselves pulled out of the material existence? Why is that? So there's various examples, ways that can be looked at. Two things I wanted to point out. One is that we've been conditioned for a long, long time. An example is given is just like if you have a floor, if it's inclined in a certain way, if there's water on it, maybe there's like holes. Let's say if you have a garage and the floor is tilted in a certain way, the water will naturally go towards one end and it'll go out the hole. But maybe there's a couple of different holes. One is more elevated than the other. So the water naturally goes to the lowest point, but you can push the water to the other side. It can go out of the other hole, it can escape, but it takes more effort. And then according to how much inclined the floor is, it'll take more effort to push it out of the hole that's elevated. Similarly, our consciousness, we've experienced in our own life intense feelings of Krishna consciousness. That's why we're here. And those intense feelings and emotions are much greater than any material pleasure. We all know that. But why is it that we're not fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness? Because the floor is naturally inclined downward, and it's much easier for us to go out of the wrong hole. So we have to make the endeavor to push it through the more elevated escape. So the reason why it's inclined in that way, and it's difficult according to our conditioning, is because we have been conditioned for a long, long time. Yeah, it's just like if you were to buy some shoes. You know, when you first buy shoes, they're a little bit tight. What you need to do is you need to wear them in. You need to wear them for some time, and then they grow into you, and so they're real comfortable. And once they get worn in, they don't go back, or it'd be very, very difficult for them to ever go back to where they naturally were in the beginning. Similarly with our desires, because we've been in this material world for so long, they're just like worn in shoes. They don't go back very, very easily. Another example is just like if you have a rubber band, if you put around some papers, if it's on those papers for a long, long time, it loses its elasticity. It won't go back naturally to where it was before. Similarly, our desires, because we're so conditioned, we've been in this material world so long, it naturally goes towards the material. Even though we want it to go towards spiritual desires, we're naturally pulled the other direction. So one thing is because of our long conditioning, and the other thing is because we've been conditioned for so long, we're still attached to those desires. I heard an example. It's just like if you have a puppy. Yeah, our son brought us a dog to take care of a small dog, and here we are, devotees, older devotees, and still by taking care of this dog, we knew that you shouldn't get attached to a dog, but just because we took care of the dog for a week or two, naturally you get attached, because they're cute and they're obedient and blah blah blah, and just naturally, even though you're devotees, you should know better, we got attached after a week or two. So if you have something like a puppy dog, you invest a lot of emotional energy into that dog, and you become quite attached to it. But what if you find out, the doctor says, you've got a rabid dog. He's foaming at the mouth. He's having all kinds of problems here. You've got to get rid of him, because if you don't, if he bites you, he's definitely going to bite you, and you are going to die yourself. So get rid of him. So once you understand that, what you need to do is take that rabid dog and push him away and never look again at him. Just give him a clear message that you are not welcome here, leave. And then eventually, even though the dog is thinking, why did my master abandon me? What did I do? Why is he treating me so bad? If you don't look at the dog again, eventually he'll get the message and it'll go away. But the problem is, because we're attached, he's snuggling up against us and he's pouting. We might show affection to him. And as soon as we show affection for the puppy, he's going to come back and try as much as he can to get back again. It's almost like impossible to get rid of him. Similarly, our desires are just like that rabid dog. We've been associating with him for so long. We've given him so much affection. He's so cute. But once we come in contact with the instruction of the spiritual master, we understand how this is death. We have to turn away. If we give him, even show him a little affection, what it is that we're showing him mixed messages, and therefore it's difficult to give up those desires. We have to give a clear message to the rabid dog that we no longer want him. But because we're attached, it's difficult to do that. I'll give another example. When I was much younger, I got attached to one girl, and she was just flirting with me. She had actually no interest in me at all. But I became very attached, and for a long time I was pursuing her. Wasn't interested in it all. It was just a painful relationship. It was only one-sided. And then finally I woke up and I said, this is ridiculous. I have to give it up. And as soon as I became detached, this same girl, she saw that and she again flirted with me. And as soon as she flirted with me, again I fell head over heels for her. And it was so difficult to give up that one-sided relationship. Again, as soon as I was pursuing her, she had no interest in me. It was just pain. Maya is just like that. Maya, will flirt with us. And as soon as we show some interest, it's very, very difficult to give up that desire again. So we give a mixed message to Maya. Are we interested or are we not? We have to completely give it up. It's difficult because of our conditioning and because of our attachments. And that's why we can't take full advantage. Now we'll go to the next slide. So here's, again, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Durdaivam, Idrishamihaj, Nanuraga, Anjani Nanuraga, that we're not attached. But so why is that? Even though it's such a valuable thing. Here's a verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 8, verse 70. Very famous verse, I'm sure we all know. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati, that if we have some intelligence by the grace of God, that we understand how valuable love of God is, Krishna Bhakti, then Kriyatam Yadi Kutopi Labhyate. Once we understand that, then whatever it takes, we have to attain it. If there's a price to pay, whatever the price is, we should pay it to get this very, very valuable thing, Krishna Rasa Bhava. Tatra lalyam api mulyam ekalam. So mulyam means a currency. What's the money? What do we have to pay in order to attain Krishna consciousness? So here this verse, which as Rupa Goswami's verse, I think he composes, mulam ekalam. There's only one price to pay to attain Krishna consciousness, is tatra lalyam. It means intense desire, intense greed to attain Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, janma koti sukritir na labhyate. There's no other payment that's possible. Even if you have pious activities for millions and millions of births, you can't attain Krishna consciousness. The one and only thing that we can do, the only currency to attain Krishna consciousness, is an intense greed, desire to have it. So the question then is how to develop the greed, where to get that intense desire if we don't have it. Let's go to the next slide. Just as we said, because we're conditioned, those desires, it's hard to change. So here's an example that I got from a seminar that Chaitanya Charan gave about the Shikshashtaka. He said, one example he gave was that desires are not linear. They're not just linear. They're actually triangular. So what this means is, just like if you have a line, it's 2 points from point A to point B, a straight line. So Krishna consciousness is not exactly an unbroken line. We have certainly a desire to become Krishna conscious, but there's all kinds of things that get in the way. Our conditioning and our attachment for previous desires keep us from going straight to the goal. So it's not exactly linear. Actually, desires are more triangular. So you can think of it like this, what that means, triangular desires. I know from before I was a devotee, when I was a young boy, I mean, I'm talking about in grade school, I learned how to drink and smoke when I was starting around 7 or 8 years old. That's a fact. I don't know what it's like nowadays, but that's when I started drinking and smoking. So, you know, if you drink alcohol, it is really nasty. I mean, the first time I drank, it was so horrible that I threw up, got really sick. It was terrible. Same with smoking. You know, you're coughing all over, you get sick. It's not natural to do these things, to smoke and to drink. So why did I do them? Because I wanted to impress my friends. Because my friends, they had more, you know, they were popular. They had girlfriends. I wanted to impress them, and they drank and smoked, so I have to drink and smoke. Because you see it on advertisements, you watch movies, you know, all the tough guys, they drink and smoke. So because there was that kind of exposure, even though it wasn't my desire. It came from the outside. That's the point. This is what is meant by a triangular desire. It comes from the outside. So in the same way, we can become advanced in Krishna consciousness, get that intense desire to become Krishna conscious by observing other devotees. So that's why I showed that previous slide of all those various devotees of Srila Prabhupada that we have around us, either God brothers or the next generation even, just like there was pictures there of Kardambakanana Swami, Bhakti Vaibhava, Shivaram Swami. I mean, personally, I'm very attracted to them because of their gravity and their absorption in Krishna consciousness. So if we find some qualities in advanced devotees that we're attracted to, we should take advantage of associating with them by listening to them, by reading what they write, if possible, giving service to them, somehow or other, by associating with more advanced devotees. That's how this triangular desires can become aroused. So still, we should understand that Krishna consciousness, because of our conditioning and our long-time association, it will be slow. We have to be very patient. Realization doesn't come immediately. Krishna consciousness, or our realization of it, evolves over time in two ways. I'm sure there's different ways to analyze this, but I'll give two ways. I believe the word is sporty. Sporty means when something gushes forth all of a sudden. It just like erupts, an eruption of emotions, specifically in bhakti. Krishna sometimes favors his devotees with a rush of very advanced emotions of Krishna consciousness, or some sort of a realization. I remember once many years ago, this was astonishing for me. I don't know if you can relate to it, but when I was a much younger devotee, I was just really in Maya, especially this day. And I was driving with some other devotees to an engagement, and I just happened to remember a verse, and Srila Prabhupada was quoting from a lecture and what Srila Prabhupada said about it. And as soon as I thought of that, all of a sudden I had this burst of emotion. It was so uncontrollable that I just started to sob, when I was driving the car. The devotees were there. So there's no reason for it. I was in Maya all day, and then after that too, I was in Maya. But for that moment, for a few minutes there, it was so intense that I was sobbing, and I was thinking, that is really something. I had there was no reason for it. It was just something that was given to me. So I was thinking at the time, well, maybe I'm becoming advanced in Krishna consciousness, but the next few minutes I was in Maya again, so that couldn't possibly be. So that's what made it even more astonishing to me, that for no good reason I had this burst of Krishna consciousness. So this doesn't show that we're like all of a sudden pure devotees or something. We've all of a sudden made a jump of advancement, but what it is it's the mercy of the Lord upon us. He gives us a little glimpse of what's in the future for us as we continue the path of Krishna consciousness. So part of the evolution of Krishna consciousness is we get these little sporties, these little glimpses of intense emotions that come forth from the soul. And we know that's what it's from. One thing is sporty, and then the other thing is the gradual advancement of Krishna consciousness. It's just like the sun rising in the morning. If we go on a japa walk, let's say right before dawn, it may be pitch black at the time, but gradually there's just a little bit of light, dawning light that comes, that we can see just popping out of the horizon. And then as we're chanting, we notice there's a little bit more light, and then gradually after, we're chanting for an hour or so, all of a sudden we say, oh, morning has come. It's like a sudden realization, hey, the sun has risen. So it's the same thing with Krishna consciousness. Gradually the sun of Krishna is rising within our heart. If we want the sun to rise faster, then we have to increase our sincerity, avoid the offenses, serve and associate with more advanced devotees, and then the sun will rise faster. But whatever, because of our conditioning, we shouldn't lose patience, because it is gradual. But one day we'll notice, oh my goodness, the sun of Krishna has arisen within our hearts. That's how it happens. That's why it's a gradual process. And then this is the last slide I have for today. Here we go. Okay, and so this is the verse again. I'll try and tie this all together. So the verse again is Shitau Shayanam Tam Akunta Varchasam Karala Dangstrong Pardasta Dachatam Ajadayo Viksha Shushasanga Sha Sangshur Agata Aho Imam Konu Labeta Sangstitim. That Brahmā and the other demigods, they came to see this fight between the Lord and Hiranyaksha, seeing the demon on the ground, biting his lip with his fearful teeth. They saw the glow of his face, that it wasn't faded yet, because the Lord was still touching his body. And because of that, Brahmā said that, oh, what a blessed death. Who could possibly have a more blessed death than this? Because tashyarte yat shino nita uttama sloka vartaya. Anyone who comes in contact with the Lord, who praises His glories at every moment, he will conquer over death. So that's what I had for this. I'm going to go back and unmute everybody and see if anyone has to add.
Ram, I really liked your slideshow. Especially in the beginning, you were showing these actors who, I think all actors. I don't think there were any actresses, all men, and how their physical bodies had changed so radically. And then you contrasted that with the devotees. That was, that was amazing. I was particularly looking at Val Kilmer. It wasn't very long ago I gave a talk at the Hawaii Forgiveness Society, and I had to go back and watch one of his movies because there was an important point that I wanted to make that was based on that story. It was a movie that had a lot of sort of religious undertones. And God, he was so handsome, such a good-looking guy. I think the movie was from either the late 70s or early 80s. And then you showed him, my God, he looked all distorted. And it's eye-opening. No, we don't see it. It's like if you look at film, you look one frame to the next frame. It's almost like there's no difference between a preceding frame and the following frame. But if you go way, way, way forward in the film, especially the film of life, it's like, wow, that was really eye-opening. I like that. And I really liked your example of Maya, about becoming too friendly with Maya. And you gave the example of a dog, and that's really relevant to me because I have a tendency to become attached to dogs. Ever since I was a young child, we had a family dog, and I've always gotten really close to them. And then you gave the example of a becoming attached to a beautiful puppy that has what was the disease? Ram, what was the disease you gave?
Rabies.
Rabies, yeah. It was rabid. It kind of reminds me, I think there's an old movie, Old Yeller, where, if I'm remembering it right, and I'm going back to the 50s, I guess.
The
but
other
I think
one that was eating he was a sheepdog and he started eating the sheep. Maybe, I don't know. It was, I don't remember.
Oh, is that what happened? Okay, I was thinking
think
he got rabies, or somehow they had to shoot him at the end. And, well, whatever it was, something went wrong, and at the end, I think they had to shoot him. But anyway, it was a really good class and really easy to follow. It was just a delightful class. I got a lot of nice realizations from it about having to not flirt with Maya and give it up. So that was nice. Thank you, Prabhu.
Well, thanks for the encouragement, because I wasn't sure if that was going to be a good idea to show those pictures of the movie stars. But I was amazed that, you look at these guys when they're older, and they're the same age as these devotees. These devotees are absolutely effulgent. I'm amazed that they look so young and vibrant.
Yeah.
They don't look like they're on their last leg or anything like that. You look at Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada did not look like an old man. He was old. He had an old body, but you never think of him as his body. You think that he's just full of life and vigor. The soul is coming forth.
Ramananda, because it looks like materialists are defeated by time and devotees defeated by Krishna's love. So they're shining.
Yeah, even if a devotee becomes kind of old and infirm, which sometimes we do see, but that glimmer, as Madhu was pointing out, that just a glimmer in the eye is still so youthful, and it's like you can see this burning spark within that's so youthful and sweet. Whereas for materialists, they're just old and haggard and practically dead already, dead although breathing.
Can I jump in here?
No, you can't jump in. Please, we've been waiting for you.
Okay, licentious living will age a person faster. And also karma is written into faces and bodies. And so if they're depleting their life force, it's going to manifest in different ways. So that's part of the difference. And it's true, beauty, it's said that beauty's on the inside, right? There's that expression. So I have a few notes here about auras. Srila Prabhupada used to say his disciples were bright-faced. And I've grown up in the 60s, and during that time, we heard about auras and light coming from the body, and it's even observable in plants and even photographable on electrostatic plates. And there was a famous guy, Carillion, that we saw some of his photography of leaves and things, and even the leaf was cut and the electrical field was still there, showing the part that was missing. So Mula Prakriti, old Prabhupada disciple and famous book distributor, she told us that she was experimenting with this aura photography that came out of this Carillion photography. That they were trying to photograph light coming from bodies at UCLA. And it was in the early 70s, and she happened to talk Vishnu Janaswami into coming into the studio. And when she saw the light coming from his body, she immediately went to the temple. She wanted to know more. It was off the charts, different. And some people can see auras, and even in old Christian paintings, you see a lot of artists painting halos around the heads of the saints or the holy person. And I was in South India some years ago, and there was this museum, and it was Rameshwaram temple, and they had part of it was showing this one section. It was showing auras and what the colors meant, and other subtle material forms that mystics had seen and purified rishis had seen. And so, you know, some people can see these things that an ordinary person can't. And the white auras were related to spiritual enlightenment. So Brahmā and the Devas, certainly they have the ability to see light. You know, their bodies, a lot of, you know, the higher planetary system bodies are ethereal, they're light bodies, so they can understand, they can see this, and they can see things we can't. And so they looked at Hiranyaksha's body, and they can understand that although his spirit had vacated his body, and under normal circumstances it was just faded, his face was still glowing, and they could understand how special that was, because also karmic reaction, simple activity, darkens the light coming from the body. So that's my contribution.
If I can also say something related, it's very interesting. You mentioned Mula Prakriti and auras, and recently in Russia was also one incident how one devotee, one person joined the movement because he was practicing for many years to see auras, and then somebody brought him to a temple, and then he said he saw such auras, bright auras around the deities, that he just couldn't believe it. Like he said, they are alive, because otherwise you wouldn't see auras.
Right.
Auras, you know, and he became devotee immediately, and he started to explain everybody that deities are alive. You know, he just came first day. You know. So.
Yeah, that reminds me of, and I've mentioned it previous, but bear with me, that I was I had some visa problem in India, and I was in Bombay at the time. And somebody told me about a life member, a judge, that might be able to help me. I was a couple of months over, and I had to face the authorities about it. And so when I went to his office, and I was talking to him, it didn't kind of work out, because he wanted more money than I could afford at the time to turn it. But something kept... out of the corner of my eye, some light was on the bookshelf. So I got up from the chair and I went over to see what it was, and it was this picture. It was a black and white picture. It was like a 5x7 in a nice frame, and it was glowing. And it was a black and white picture, that famous Gopal poster. But it wasn't the whole poster. It was like Krishna's face and his chest, and I don't even think the deer or the calf was in it. But when I was looking at the picture, I didn't say anything, and the judge, he saw me looking at the picture, and he said, "Your spiritual master gave me that picture." Wow. And the thought actually entered my mind to ask him for it. That's crazy bold for me. But Prabhupada says in his books that, ultimately everything is spiritual, but, that you spiritualize things by using them like that. But, devotion can just light up inanimate objects. I'm not saying the deities aren't alive or aren't present in the forms, but the saints, they bring that presence, that spiritual presence to the object.
I was going to say that a few of the photographs that I stuck in those slides, they were like Shivaram Swami, Kadampakana Swami, Bhakti Bhai Baba Swami. Another thing is not only the way they look, but when they speak, it's more subtle than sight, is sound. When they speak, or especially like when they're doing kirtan, it's mesmerizing. I have experience, like if you play one of their kirtans, you almost like get stuck. You become stunned. It's hard to even leave, because it's so powerful the way they sing, the way they do kirtan. In the same way. Yeah, it's just like amazing when one becomes advanced in Krishna consciousness, how attractive everything is about that devotee. Krishna is shining forth from them, not only visibly, but audibly. Okay. Well, thank you, Prabhu, for coming, listening. Srimad Bhagavatam.
I just wanted to say thank you for the class because it was very, very appropriate. My oldest cow, who was a devotee, left her body yesterday morning right about sunrise when it was light enough for me to go check on her. And Madan Mohan was giving class. I took my phone with me and I went out. She was still breathing, and she had been on the ground for 9 days, and we had been turning her over every day, and that's just incredibly long to be leaving your body when you're a cow. It's hard. And so I went out and I chanted to her for a little while, but I told her I have to go make the deities plates. I'll be back soon, which is what I had told her every morning for the last 9 days. And when I went back, she had left her body. So she was a real devotee cow. She gave milk for 5 years, which is also unheard of, 10 gallons a day. And all the devotees had her milk. Her milk was offered burfi and sandesh and kheer and curd. And I never made any tea out of it, though. But, she, and yogurt, lots and lots of yogurt. She was just a really wonderful, special cow. And I told her, while she was laying down these past 9 days, I told her about all the service, reminded her of all the service she did, and I chanted to her a lot, and I played a lot of kirtans for her. So this, I could tell, as soon as I went out there, not because she wasn't breathing, but because her bodily luster had left her. So anyway, Haribol and
How old was she?
Dunya was 22, which is incredibly old also for a Holstein cow. Usually they live 16 years. A 20-year-old cow would be considered very, very old, and she was 22. So she was definitely a devotee. She did a lot of service. So.
Well, she's definitely coming back in a really, really elevated devotee birth, or perhaps she could have even gone back to Godhead. Who knows? A question, what do you do now with her physical body?
Well, Krishna is so kind. He has given us these 9 days to consider that, which was hard on us, but we did have to consider that. So we have a hole, and we also have a lot of wood. So we're thinking we're going to do both, cremate and bury her. And
nice.
hopefully it works. If it doesn't work, at last resort, we'll call the county and say, we have done everything we can for our beloved cow, and now we're turning her over to you. We're just depending on Krishna the whole way. We've got, like I said, a lot of wood and cardboard, and I've got some ghee actually stored up for her, and we're going to start the fire in the bottom of the hole, which isn't as deep as I'd like for it to be, but I live on a rock. Start the fire and pull her into it, and put the fire on top of her as well, and see what happens.
Nice.
So anyway, thank you for this opportunity for me to give a little memorial about her. I was wondering how I would do that. So.
And not only did she perform so much service, but you got to do wonderful service to her. That's a wonderful service to Krishna, serving the Brahmanas and protecting the cows. Krishna is Govinda.
Yes, and our deities, Gopalaji, Radha Gopalaji. Our farm has always been called Gopalaji Milk Farm. So, and she wasn't our first cow, but she's the oldest one. She was definitely the oldest one that we've had her entire life.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you for the class, Ramananda. It was just perfect as always. Krishna just makes all these wonderful arrangements for us. I hope we can all see how wonderful Krishna is.
I think I've told this before, but there's a drummer who worked with Joe Morello, a famous Take Five, if anybody follows jazz. And when I was a really young man in high school, I used to go and see him where he was giving clinics to drummers. And then many, many, many years later, as a devotee, actually wasn't that many years ago, he came to Hawaii, and I was surprised he was still alive. He came to Hawaii, he was giving a clinic, and I went, even as a devotee, I went to go see him. And boy, it's like these pictures, I just didn't recognize him. He was so old and blind, and his physical body had changed so much, and he was someone that I had such, on the material plane, someone I had so much respect for as a musician. And it was a great realization as a devotee to see that even someone who was so brilliantly empowered karmically to play like this drummer could play, you could see it all came to an end. He got old and couldn't play nearly like the way he used to play in his physical body, and now he's left his body and gone. But there's wonderful realizations to see that in this world, that Jata Sihi Dhruvo Mature, for one who was born, death is certain. Everyone goes. So we have to get, as Ramananda was advising us, we've got to get really serious about spiritual life, because our end, even as devotees, it's not that devotees don't get old. I mean, we may maintain our luster, but we do have limited time. And Prabhupada wants us to attain perfection in this lifetime and go back to Godhead. There's no reason we can't if we follow strictly. So anyway, Ramanandaji is a wonderful class. I feel very satisfied and ready now to go on with my day.
Okay, well, thank you very much for those. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, Haribol.
Haribol.
Jai.